I guess I'll call the, call the meeting to order. Little big gavel there. So, let's see, I'm calling to order the Monday, November 7th meeting of the Iowa City Climate Action Commission. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. We'll begin with the roll call. Michael Einen Lynch. Here. John Fraser.
Here.
Stratus Giannakouros. Not present at the moment. Ben Grimm.
Here.
Clarity Guerra.
Here.
Casey Hutchinson. Not present at the moment. Matt Krieger.
Here.
Jesse Leckband.
Here.
Jesse is present online. Becky Soglin, present. Gabe Sturdivant.
Present online.
Thank you, Gabe. And Matt Walter.
Here.
Thank you. And would staff members like to introduce them, identify themselves to the public?
Sarah Gardner.
Daniel Pizzle.
Megan Hill.
Andrea Bowler.
Andrea Bowler as well.
A member of the public, so is in the audience.
Staff.
Or staff. Oh, apologies. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from October 10th, 2022. Are there any corrections needed? And if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes from October?
I move to approve the minutes. Krieger.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Walter.
So, moved by Matt Krieger, second by Matt Walter, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the,
Aye.
oh, thank you, Gabe or Jesse. So that motion passes. And now is our time for public comment of items not on the agenda, but as we have no members of the public, is it okay if I skip reading the statement and we will just move on? Okay, thank you. So we are just moving along here to get to some good stuff here about announcements.
All right, so first up is action items from the last meeting. The first action item was to amend the minutes to iron out a sentence that may have led to some misperceptions, which we did before sending the finalized minutes off to the clerk's office. Thank you, Becky, for that catch. The second item was to follow up with Mid-Am and see if they had any additional information on the two questions that have been posed. In your agenda packet, you'll see that they provided responses to those two questions. The third request was that Ayman Sharif's report on his work with the Climate Action Grant, hosting a Resilience Hub workshop, be included in the packet. You will have seen that that was included as well. And then the fourth action item was to touch in with Ann Arbor to find out the timeline for their feasibility plan that they're doing. I'm happy to report we were able to get in touch with them. They responded back right away. The consultant has been hired and the planning process is underway. They anticipate having a report done by the end of June. So we will continue to keep you posted on that. The next items are upcoming events. We have 3 on here just to have on the radar. The first is that our Teen Resilience Corps has been hard at work and having some very interesting conversations with their neighbors. They're in the process of finishing up the zine that's going to go in the resilience kits, and then they anticipate distribution happening next week, if not next week, before Thanksgiving at the latest. I imagine this burst of cold weather may be extra motivating on that front. But very interesting project, and I do want to give some recognition to Ben Grimm for helping us move that project forward when it didn't. When we ran into some obstacles this summer, he was right on the spot suggesting an environmental club that we could work with at City High, and that, in fact, is what we've been doing, and it's been a wonderful partnership. So thank you for that, Ben. Next up is America Recycles Day, which is this month. Jane Wilch, our recycling coordinator, and Jen Jordan, our resource management superintendent, are hosting a Ask Jane and Jen Day down at the Eastside Recycling Center, and they're inviting members of the public to stop by with any recycling questions they have or any sort of waste disposal questions, and they will be providing hot beverages and answers. So you're quite welcome to attend that if anybody wants more information. We're happy to pass it along. And then just a note that our AmeriCorps team is going to be participating in a STEAM event at Kirkwood College. They've done this for the last several years. They bring a stream table and talk about just water control, stormwater management. So they're looking forward to that, and it's nice that Kirkwood continues to invite us back to participate. Next up, we have working group updates, and we'll just pause and note for the minutes that Stratus has joined the meeting. Welcome, Stratus.
And Casey Hutchinson, too,
Oh.
just as you can see.
Casey. Welcome to Casey as well. The Resilience Hub Working Group met last week to kind of outline next steps. Would any members of that group like to present or talk a little about what we went over, or I'm happy to do so. It's fine either way. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Sarah gave a great presentation, kind of an intro presentation. I don't really know anything about Resilience Hub, so I'm kind of learning on the fly, and I thought Sarah did a great job of kind of introducing that and getting started discussions, or if you're ready to start having discussions on it.
Yeah, I can give an update on what we talked about. So it was our first meeting, or at least the first one that I've been part of, and we started with just kind of going over definitions, what the terms are, how a resilience hub differs from an emergency shelter and other things that people might kind of lump in with that term. And then we started talking a little bit about what we want to do with a pilot program, and our first assignment, our first action item is to just kind of brainstorm and think of organizations that are already existing in the community that we might be able to work with and kind of build up into resilience hubs.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but you all passed the test. Well done. So we're looking forward to continuing those discussions. We're going to be looking at organizations we can possibly partner with. There was some great brainstorming about what kind of support we can offer to help increase the resilience activity. And we'll be keeping you posted on those discussions as we move forward. This working group, I should note, we anticipate carrying forward into next year because it's such a big project and so much work to be done. So, great. Next up is outreach to the community-based organizations. Does anybody, I know, John Fraser, you have an update. Does anybody else have an update they'd like to share?
No update from me. Krieger.
None from me, Soglin.
None from me, Ina Lynch.
So, I've spoken a couple times to the director of the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. And my most recent conversation was a little frustrating because we'd had some interesting talks about something that we talk about all the time, and that's landlords passing back to their renters savings if, in fact, they can create efficiencies, installation, et cetera, et cetera. And then my most recent conversation, I learned that Sarah is leaving as the director and going to work for University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics as a internal patient advocate, which I'm sure she'll do very well with. But her board is frustrated that it's November, December, and they are kind of throwing in the towel and not even going to look for a new director until January. And so we kind of have to start over again with some conversations, although the president of their board, Andy Martin, who also runs Martin Construction, apparently has his heart in this, so I'm going to jump the gun and talk to him before we get word on who the new director is. So sorry about that. We kind of have to start over again, but we've established some thoughts and conversations. And I talked to them about the insulation project, and I see a nice tie between affordable housing and insulation. But once again, how do you link the landlords and show them that there's a win-win and they can actually reward financially their tenants if they figure out how to do it appropriately? That's it.
Thanks for your work continuing those conversations, John. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, it's very important. And let's see. Moving on, we have some unfinished, and this is really ongoing business with the Goldie marketing plan, and let you take that away. Megan.
I'm going to share my screen. Megan has very helpfully brought some visual aids so we can see how this is shaping up. And of course, you would have had this included in your agenda packets as well. All right, Megan.
All right. So we have a 6 bi-monthly marketing campaign, which utilizes Goldie, the climate action mascot. The campaigns were chosen based on the ability in the first year to help establish Goldie as a trusted source of information. Next slide, Sarah. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is kind of what we have already done with Goldie. So Goldie was introduced first at Climate Fest. And you can see on the right the 2 mastheads that our graphic designer, Andrea, who is here today, designed for the Ambassador newsletter as well as the public Climate Action newsletter. And then it goes on to show you the tablecloth she designed. In the left-hand corner, you can see Peekaboo Goldie. That's our new tablecloth. And then below that, we have Goldie on our website right now, and we anticipate putting the campaigns on there as well. And then on the right-hand side are the first 2 campaigns, mock-up of possible sticker designs. They're not finished, just want to clarify that. And then these are the first 2 campaign social media tile mock-ups. For November, December, we have What Are You, which is about insulation, getting people to know what our value of their insulation is and if they need more. And then In It Together is more about doing what you can for neighbors. You can see Goldie. They are shoveling their neighbor's sidewalk. And then you can see the utility insert, which goes out this month. The first round of bills just got them. We have What Are You in the utility insert, and on the back it pairs well with the energy efficiency program in NDS. And then below you can see Check Your Attic Insulation banner ad for the Little Village website. Sorry. So these are example giveaways. So you all should have gotten a sticker. This is the only one that is currently made. If you don't have one, I can give you one after the meeting. And then we have a pint glass with, you can't really see it, but it's Goldie etched on it. And that's just an example. That is not designed. Neither is the reflective band. This is an example for the transit campaign. And then we have a sticker sheet that we hope to have all 6 poses on it. And that we hope to go out at Climate Fest, kind of to tie it all together, be like, these are 6 Goldie poses, and that's when the campaigns are set to end as well. And then in the packet, you should have got, if you looked at it, there are tables of each campaign, and it kind of shows you the dates to run, calls to action, what we think the Goldie pose will be. The first 2 we have, the others Andrea is still working on. And the audience, we have collateral, like where is it going to go out, social media, flyers, utility inserts, bus ads, all of that. Every campaign is different because we want to make sure we're targeting the correct people. Possible vehicles like the city social pages, that's for every campaign. And then staff responsible, you'll see in the last column of each of the campaigns. And if you have questions about it, I can take it If you have specific questions about design, Andrea is here to support that. Just know that we have the first two thought out, and then the rest of them, they're kind of ideas. We don't have those thought out yet. We plan to work on each campaign about a month or two before it's projected to go out.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
First is just out of curiosity, it says animations by Lily. Is that a company you're working with or a person?
No, it's Lily is one of our communications staff.
Okay.
She's not here, but she has been working on animating Goldie with the poses we have from the marketing company. And she sent us a little like a preview video, and there's only a few of them. We have her animated, and then we have some Jack as well. You'll see that he is also communications. So most, I would say, I think all of these are basically city staff. We don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, there's nothing outside organization, right?
Correct. This work is
nice.
being done in-house.
Yeah.
Another question I had is just based on how we will track the success of this campaign. I noticed, like, in one of your samples, one of the mailers had like a tiny URL of like know your R value of your installation. What are some of the ways that you will track metrics for, success in getting people to do the calls to action?
Yeah, with our social media, that is tracked by communication, so that is really easy. Then in anything that goes in our newsletter, again, unfortunately, we can only track the first, 2 hours goes out?
Actually, one of the things we've discovered in this is that the newsletter, originally we just get analytics mailed to us that show how many people have read the newsletter in the first 2 hours it went out, but we have contacted the company and figured out a way to see it at the end of the month, so we'll be able to
great.
track that.
So we can track that. And then same with any of the social media, the videos that go out on our channels and our YouTube, we can track that. Utility inserts. Obviously, we don't know if people are opening their mail and looking at it, but the people that get them digitally through their email, they click the link in that email. So everyone's getting the utility insert, whether digitally or physically.
If I could add to that, only because Megan wasn't part of the original conversations, that part of what we want to do is not just track how many people are seeing the ads, right? That we were very clear in giving that to the Cause Impacts who originally worked on the marketing campaign, but also looking for action. And so one of the things I'm quite happy to report, actually, the utility insert went out over the weekend, and the NDS is already getting phone calls about the insulation program and funding for it. So for that specific campaign, one of the ways we're looking at is just program participation. Something like In It Together, which is really more about neighbor connections, that's going to be a little tougher to track. But that particular campaign serves two functions. One, to get out the word about, helping out neighbors, but also to help establish Goldie as that trusted source of information that people have positive feelings towards. So that one will be a little trickier.
Nice. Well, thank you.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Kind of building off of that question, do you track your click-through rate on kind of do you have a baseline for what you're getting in engagement right now on emails?
Yes, we do.
So we'll be able to compare to that baseline and see if this new campaign increases that click-through rate.
That's a really interesting question. What we could do, so like the analytics for the newsletter, for example, which is our primary source of tracking click-through rates, we could compare it to other campaigns to see how it stacks up. I don't know that we would have an apples-to-apples comparison, like to see how many people clicked on information about the insulation program before versus now, but we could dig back in the data to see if that'd be possible. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, that'd be at least one way to kind of gauge, are people engaging with the emails and interested enough to click on that particular link?
Maybe part of me doesn't want to know if a cute cartoon bird gets better clicks than we did just talking about it ourselves.
I was going to ask a related question. That's if we can think about, and maybe this is using the past data to set a baseline, but like just having an idea of what the goal is, like what success would look like. Would we be happy with 100 clicks or 200 clicks? I don't know what is normal, and then we can kind of, then that's a way we can celebrate too if it's really successful. This is Ein and Lynch.
I'm taking notes.
This is Sturman asking. Well, just kind of based on the clicks, just to make sure that like they're not having to click on Goldie itself, you know, because that would kind of skew the metrics a little bit. Just kind of was thinking if we could put in like a how did you hear about this program, or is that already in some of these? You know, how did you hear about us things?
Yeah, I can't speak to every program. I'm thinking of the insulation program, which we share with NDS. I don't know that everyone has a how did you hear about this question. I know that some of our programs do. We can look into it more.
And then I guess my follow-up question is maybe related back to reporting out. I mean, do you have an anticipated, you know, when you plan to provide an update? Is it after, like at the end of the 6-month campaign, or whatever the frequency is? It'd be nice to have an understanding of that.
We haven't talked about that, but if you would prefer campaign by campaign, we'd probably talk about that.
Or it could just be because
Or-
this is part of, I guess, a larger action within the accelerated actions. Maybe it could just be part of your you know.
We
Regular updates.
anticipate having doing this again.
Yep.
It's just we're gonna switch out the campaigns. Like, of course, installation will probably stay. Like, we'll probably revamp it maybe a little bit, but that's really important to what we do. And then we'll switch out the little lesser ones with other campaigns that we think out throughout the year. So I would say probably at the end we can give a report.
What I might suggest is we've been thinking ahead to the working groups that are going to be happening next year. You heard me reference the Resilience Hub working group carrying forward. We're anticipating asking for a working group to look at energy benchmarking next year. And then we were thinking the third working group actually would come later in the year to think ahead to the next 6 Goldie campaigns. And that might be a really nice time to take a look at what data we've got so far to inform the decisions about which campaigns we might want to repeat and which we might want to swap out with something else.
Or the modes and methods, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I, is the Goldie character specifically and only associated with campaigns around reductions that are in the climate action plan, or is there a broader, you mentioned goodwill, is there a broader sense that you want to message to people that climate action matters, as this sticker has? And how far are you going to go into that? And I guess I ask that because it's people don't get very inspired by our values. Like, that's a campaign and it's really good. But if you're using this charismatic figure to talk about climate, things like, when you take climate action, I'm protected, or, your kids, the messages around the positivity of your taking action associated with climate benefits. And is there a campaign that's just focused on that kind of communication to get people thinking about why climate action matters, but in a positive way, not the negative stuff of there won't be biodiversity loss, right? Which is a lot of stuff that I say that we know that there's good evidence on climate communication, the science of it, what works. Just taking from that, adding it into a campaign like this to help people feel pretty good about where things are. Or is it all just specifically focused on programmatic city efforts?
At the moment, by and large, I would say it tilts more toward programmatic than sort of larger messaging, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be. And I think actually the In It Together campaign is a good example of a campaign that does a bit of both, right?
And just to be clear, I'm probably agnostic as to what way you should go with that, just wondering if that's part of it.
And it's on other, I guess, like the newsletter, on other ongoing regular communications, right? You're just talking about more of a broader general campaign. type
Right,
of
if
thing.
the charismatic nature of Goldie is going to be leveraged into broader messaging or not, I'm agnostic.
I went the opposite direction. This is Gara, that you did. I was like, put her in peril. Like, there's water up to her neck, and it says, like, climate action matters. Sorry. Here's this charismatic character that we can put in extreme peril and then resonate with.
Could be really fun. Could be really fun.
And I totally, this is John Fraser, I totally agree with your point that people don't think about our values. And I think this is a really cute way to simplify it and bring it up so that you can talk about it and it ties together with a charismatic character, et cetera, et cetera. You know, what are you? I think it's kind of cute. Whoever came up with that, congratulations.
I believe it was Sarah.
That's after 2 years of deep meditation on how to get people to care about our values.
I guess I would also say great work on putting together the work plan. I think this is, as I was reading your intro at the start of this section, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'll look for these types of things, and then I was seeing exactly what I was expecting. So that was great. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Design and Lynch. I was just wondering with the swag, excuse me, if there's any consideration to, I mean, it's, you know, we talk about reducing our consumption and there's so much swag in the world. Is there any consideration to the materials or to like sourcing like local artists and makers and stuff like that?
We have thought about local places, like for example, Andrea creates all of the designs. She is a staff member, and then we went to Old Capitol Screen Printers to get our tablecloth designed. So we do look into that. And then we had a conversation about giveaways, and we knew that we didn't want every campaign to have a giveaway because of that. And we knew that we didn't, we wanted to be very conscious about what we were giving away. And Sarah's kept saying, make sure that people will use it, like the wristbands. It's really great for not only cyclists, but people walking, pedestrians. And then the pint glasses limited giveaway, whereas everyone has a water bottle, and a lot of people give away water bottles, same as a lot of people give away tote bags now. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm inundated with recyclable bags.
And I know how you feel about t-shirts.
Yes, you'll notice no T-shirts. I think Megan hit it exactly right, that we are looking for local sources where we can of the materials, and also just trying to be extremely thoughtful that the giveaways serve a clear purpose, that they're not for every campaign, and that we're really using as our guideposts, is it something people may not have already, and is it something that is truly useful? So
I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'll just throw it out there. I wonder if there's an opportunity to work with the Teen Resilience group on making, coming up with stuff, where I know the Innovate Lab has a lot of makers tools. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to involve youth in the making of some of the swag. Could be cool.
Well, we can look into that. I'm going to write that down. Thank you.
This is Sturtevant talking, kind of along the same lines. Has any consideration been given to local bike shops or running stores or anything to distribute the bands or any local environmentally conscious places to distribute some of this? I know there are 4 campaigns, but it might work to get the messaging out a little bit more too.
Yeah. So in the marketing packet, we have possible vehicles, and that includes some of the people we can collaborate with, not only at events, but one of the people we named for the transportation campaign in May is actually the bike library. It's possible they'll have events during May that we don't know about because it's Bike to Work month. So they were named, and these people have not been contacted yet because we're very early in the process, but that's why it says possible vehicles. Anything you want to add, Sarah?
No, I think that's good.
Thanks for all the comments to the commissioners on, looks like a really thorough plan. And I just had a few things, and I had written some notes down and I left them on my desk, but I can mail them to you. Just some thoughts on additional partners on some of them. And just two kind of finer points on some of the stickers, like on the one that just says, we're in it together. In it together. Those don't really direct the people to the climate. Is there a way, I know you don't want to clutter it, but my concern about just these ones that only have the campaign phrasing is they don't have that, the little,
Yeah, the
the
call to
URL.
action on it, yeah.
You don't quite know where to go unless you're already somewhat aware of it. So just something to think about if there's a way to.
Yeah, I could offer a little thought that might be helpful on that. Those little stickers that just recap the campaigns, the vision behind those is they wouldn't be standalone stickers. They would all be on a
Okay.
sticker sheet at the end.
Oh.
And the idea is around Climate Fest to build a little celebration around the 6 different Goldie poses you've seen throughout the year. So it's meant to sort of try to jog the memory of the campaigns that have gone before, more so than to be part of the initial campaign, drawing or pushing people toward a specific action. It's kind of a Goldie celebration at the end of the year, basically, tied into Climate Fest.
And I just want to reiterate, those aren't the final stickers. They're just, I thought it'd be great for you to have a visual. So Andrea sent along the drafts.
Our hope is they'll be collector's items.
And then just, I just did have a question on the timing. I think it was the air conditioning air pumps, that it pushes it kind of late. Like
Yeah.
People might be starting to think about their furnaces instead of their AC. Though people may be motivated if they've had a whole summer of AC that isn't working very well, and and it's it's going to be 70 on Wednesday, so. But just, and maybe for the first year, like the timing, getting the timing perfect isn't part of the point. I mean, and sometimes it's helpful to think about something and then you go back to it, and it takes 2 or 3 interactions with someone to get them to take that action. So it's not necessary, it's just.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the insight and comments.
But I thought the tie-ins and the timing and everything else looked good. And like I said, there were some things I've been kind of involved in, like the bike month, so I just had on that one, I can send you a few comments on those.
And I want to remind myself, John Fraser, that wasn't that long ago we didn't even know what a climate festival was. So we're making headway. Good work.
Yeah, it's just like, man, I can see all of these being on my kids' water bottles and stuff too. So, like to collect stickers. So even though a sticker might be more of a think of it more of a disposable thing, I think kids like to collect. They're not. They can be pretty durable.
Anything else from commissioners on this? Or we'll wait to see the adventures or perils of gold.
I don't know if this is Sturman talking. I don't know if I missed it at some point, but we did get like approval from university that it's not encroaching on anything they have, right? Regarding this, I know we had talked about it when we first brought it up, but I haven't seen anything. If I missed it, I'm sorry, but
Yes, we did. We, as part of the original marketing study, the Cause Impacts did an image audit to make sure that they were far enough apart to not encroach on any copyrights. And then we did follow up ourselves with the university athletic department, who said it sounded like a great idea, and to talk to them when we start thinking about doing a physical mascot, because they may have some thoughts at that point and/or some advice. But that is many years down the road, if ever.
I look forward to seeing you in the mascot suit, Sarah.
That'll actually be a nice problem to have, to have this so popular that people start fighting us because it looks too much like Hayden Fry.
So, we will then move on to our new business, which is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant funding priorities. There was a memo in the packet, and Sarah will, this is, just to emphasize, this is sort of a preliminary discussion.
Yeah, T-shirts. Oh, sorry.
Thank you all for the wonderful comments and feedback. So in your agenda packet, you would have seen a memo included referencing the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Funding Program. This is funding that was made possible under the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's what's known as a formula grant, which differs from a competitive grant in that, I mean, it's called a formula grant because you get the money based on a formula established at the federal level. We don't know exactly what that amount is. We know that as a city with a population of more than, I believe it's 50,000 is the original cutoff, we're going to receive at least $75,000 under this program. We may receive as much as $153,000. We'll know more, hopefully, at the end of the year. What we wanted to do is very similar to what we did with ARPA funds, is present to you, the commission, a list of possibilities of things that qualify for spending this money, and just get your thoughts on what our top priorities might be. I will say that in preliminary discussions among staff, some exciting news, at long last, third time's a charm, the solar array for the Public Works building has been awarded, so we are going to be able to move forward on that. And one of the ways that these monies can be used is to help pay for solar installations on municipal buildings. So I know that that is one project that I think has the attention of staff, but should the monies not be funded there, or if we find other ways to fund that, I wanted to get your sense of where our priorities might be for this money. And so our thought is to just introduce the topic today, talk through the possibilities a little bit, and then come back to it in December and see if we can arrive at some consensus as to what the top priorities should be. And I did put in there, just because I think the worst thing I can do to you before the holidays is suggest you're going to have to write a memo, that no memo is required on this. The top priorities will be entered into the minutes at our next meeting, and that will be sufficient to help guide staff and council discussions. I don't know how you'd like to best approach the conversation from there.
And just for someone who might not have had a chance to fully read the memo, the items listed here, I think they number about 15, are from the EECBG website. So they're sort of standard, if you will, and there's obviously quite a few.
One of the first ideas that came to mind is some of the more daunting suggestions that have been received in terms of renewable energy. I know $75,000 doesn't go that far with some things, but something like a community battery backup could be at least like research budgeted and begin to be scoped out. That is something I've been curious about, because there's not a great model for it from a city perspective, and it would kind of be cool research to share out with other communities too. But that was one thing that came to mind in it. Under 13, development, implementation, and installation of solar was one option, and that would be kind of a reinterpretation in terms of like storing that 4 times of need.
To that point, Clarity, just this morning I read an article, maybe you saw it, Sarah, in Energy News, about Columbus, Ohio, doing a renewable microgrid for their facility. So I can send that to you if you like.
Was it in Midwest Energy News?
Yeah, it was They only send out once a day, right?
Yeah, I was busy laughing about the article about North Dakota advertising itself as a clean energy hub for cryptocurrency mining.
I think it was just under, if you didn't get past that, it was the 2 items under that. So you could find it there. But that's a good point, Clary Dixie.
One of my concerns was that 75,000 or whatever it's going to be, it isn't a lot. Is it enough to go off on a radical new direction with something that we haven't even attacked or thought about? And one thought is, yeah, we need to bring up new ideas and new thoughts. But at the same time, I'm thinking, what could we do that would be synergistic with something we're already doing? What would support something that is very important to us and make it even more powerful? So I'm torn between piling on something that we're already doing as opposed to starting something totally new because of the limitation of the funds.
That's a good point. And the packet for December will include the latest update on where we are with the different of the goals, that we always use as a touchstone. So you'll have that to kind of toggle between.
Yeah,
Matt,
and actually, so this is Krieger. I was looking back at last month's report because that had the update on the where we're at on each industry sector. And so again, thinking about priorities, like where should we still be prioritizing to try to make the most impact, right? And I think over and over again we've seen the residential sector, existing buildings, as well as transportation had bumped up. And so I was in my mind, I was starting to think of it from a prioritization in that way. And then my mind kind of went down the path, started going down the path that John's did, I think, which was, do we continue to, it seems like we want to have a multiplier effect if we could, and use of the funds so that those dollars expand and create and go with more dollars, right? Either from partnering agencies or matching funds, or that it is working to jumpstart other things that then expands farther out, that keeps others going. And so those were kind of where the directions that my mind started going first.
For me, it was sort of an interesting exercise to look through the memo, and granted, I've seen this list a few times, so it's a little easier for me on the first pass, but what I underlined, what first jumped out to me, and I won't tell you what I underlined, but that just as you go through the process next month, you could do that, underline what jumps out with you, then go to this and compare and sort of have a conversation with yourself about it. And Sarah and I think it's okay to add that we had had a conversation. I have my county role, and we do expect also to get some kind of allocation. But given that Iowa City has such a distinct action plan, that it's good to look at that first. But we are if there's potential for some kind of collaboration, we would consider it. But we do have different jurisdictions in some respects, so and somewhat different purviews. But
do you know how much the county would likely get?
I think it was just about $98,000, but it's yes. So, but not a guarantee either, and not something we've discussed yet with our board. So, learning about it, as you imagine, there's just with a list of 15 options, there's going to be a lot of requirements on showing how you're going to use the money and using it responsibly.
And that's 15 options with multiple subpoints.
So, yes.
I have a question about number 4, the establishment of financial incentive programs. Just to help interpret, would Roots to Trees be an example of something like that? And that has seemed like the fact that people know about it, use it, and kind of talk about it, and then plant trees is, I know trees are cool too. So it's a reward. It has seemed to be a very successful process. I wonder if there's other models. I know that there's other financial support grants, but other models for that kind of financial incentive.
Are you talking about the structure of the incentive specifically, or supporting trees?
How it could be applied in a new, I guess my question is two-part. Is Roots to Trees considered a financial incentive program? Yeah, yes.
Yes.
For energy efficiency specifically?
No.
Like what it,
Well, and then my second question is like, are there other financial incentive programs related to energy efficiency that are models, or would this be like a new thing that would be created for this grant?
You know, it's so interesting you bring that up because Root for Trees is a very successful program. And in fact, so successful, we've been approached by other entities wanting to contribute funds to it. And we have to say, well, it's fully funded. Like, you know, we can talk about some other options potentially that might be beneficial to spread the love. But it is actually a model that we talk about a lot internally as a successful one to duplicate for other areas. I think one of our goals in the office, and you've noticed, you know, as we've been bringing forward more energy efficiency programs, is trying to get more programs out there while reducing the administrative burden. And part of that is trying to not have a whole bunch of programs that function in very different ways, right? And I think we've got two models that are working really well at the moment. One is the Root for Trees, and then the other is the model we're using for heat pumps and insulation and electric panels. Which isn't to say there aren't other models out there. We are always looking, but yeah.
I think that, and we talked about this in the insulation working group as well. One of the things that makes Roots to Trees less daunting is that there's a clear path forward. It's like you receive a voucher, you buy a tree at a place that you're familiar with. I think the insulation working group was struggling with, you have to get a quote, and then you have to email Daniel, and you might not know who he is. that the clear next step is more challenging with a multi-step process. So I guess part of my question is just like making it really clear how to receive the financial incentive and the overall benefit to you. Mm-hmm. And insulation's more expensive than a tree, and it's more complicated because you need a contractor and you need a price and stuff like that. But I guess, I mean, free money for people is both enticing and could get them to do behaviors that are very high priorities for the city.
Mm.
Kind of related to that, I wondered, talking about friction points, is there a reporting requirements that the city has to do as part of this as well that should be taken into consideration at all?
There is a reporting requirement. I mean, we will have to demonstrate that we use the funds according to the rules established for them. But I don't know that that'll be onerous to the point where we can sweat those details. You don't have to sweat them.
Sarah, I'm wondering, do you think it would help, given I keep going back to the 15 options, because I've been thinking about these already, in terms of the county, if we potentially have this to spend as well. Would it be agreeable or helpful, I guess I'm asking the commissioners as well, that maybe folks come with their top 3, and we can kind of maybe do a quick, initially go and just almost do a quick tally of, not that's going to guide the entire conversation, but we might find that everybody picked one of these and that something else is sort of a clear second. And that would just maybe help us have a conversation that, just help have a good conversation. Would that be okay, or does that feel too limiting? I don't want to limit folks, but 15's a lot of choices. I don't know, if you're like me, if I get 15 choices, I choose nothing if it's in a store. They say that actually isn't something that influences people. If you have too many to choose from, you walk away with nothing. Not that we're going to do that, but.
Well, 3 times the number of us seems like already quite a few to have on a list, yeah.
Or just the top 2, would that?
Well, what we could do is if everybody wanted to submit their top 3, or as many of you as feel inclined to submit your top 3 ahead of the meeting, we could prepare a slide that has them pre-tallied, and that might be a nice jumping off point. That way we don't have to do the math on the fly while we're all in the room.
That would be great.
So let's see, so our meeting is on Monday the 5th, and so we have the entire week after Thanksgiving. I know would you just want to have it by that Friday or that Thursday? What would be helpful to you, Sarah?
Yeah, I think if you got it to us by the Friday,
Okay.
we should be able to tally it up and,
So December 2nd.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be published ahead of time in the agenda?
No, I don't think so. I think we
Okay.
can amend it into afterward.
Okay.
Hey, this is Sturtevant. I have a kind of two-part question. Are there like restrictions on some of these that are well known in advance? Say we go down the route of one and it's like, oh, you can't use the funds for that.
What's in the memo is pulled almost word from the Department of Energy's website. So what we know, you know, at this point.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of open. I didn't want to like jump down the road of, doing that battery backup option. And they're like, oh no, you can't add it to an existing program or something. I just wanted to make sure that we don't go down the route of, funding something and then have it be, yeah, you can't use the funds for that. But if that's the wording and it's pretty open from, taking a look at these, we should be okay, right?
As far as we know, when the formula funds are allocated, we probably will get a bit more detail. But this is the information we have to go off of from now. And it's so broad, I think we'd probably struggle to hit on something that they wouldn't fund unless it's, a feasibility study for using more fossil fuels. That might be offsides.
Why?
Put that out of your minds right now.
Are there any on this list, or that from city staff perspective, you're already like, this is a kind of project, like, let's not even bother considering it, like, it's way beyond what we could take on as a city right now, or would be such a distraction from other things? Like, I'm just trying to think, what are ways that we could narrow this down, or as we go and think of our own priority rankings, are there, ways we should maybe be steering our thinking?
I think your input is valuable regardless. Part of the reason we have the commission is to get the input from folks who aren't thinking the way city staff are. But I can say part of the way we're thinking about it a bit as staff is that we've seen capital costs go up across the board as part of our budgeting exercises. Currently, we're looking at what projects can be pushed back because the expenses have gone up so dramatically, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the idea of using this to help fund that public works project that we've been hoping to get off the ground for a year now has caught our attention. I think the other thing we think about is just weighing, does it make sense to put more money toward a project that's already underway that maybe could use some more funding, versus filling a gap that we haven't yet tried to address. So I think about something like putting the money toward more heat pumps. That's probably the most expensive project we have going at the moment. And certainly an influx of cash. Danny, how many more heat pumps do you think we could get with $150,000?
A significant number.
So it's a little, if we added that there, that's an existing program that could have a boost. On the other hand, there are tax incentives coming down the pike to help with heat pumps, so maybe it makes sense to put it somewhere else. Certainly, we don't want to end, if Danny had said, with $150,000, we could buy 3 more heat pumps, that doesn't seem like a great use for it, compared to something else. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's sort of how we've been puzzling through it.
Obviously, it's. Go ahead.
It says end of 2020 or 2022 is when you'll know the final amounts. Do you have anything more than like in a month from now we'll know, or?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's supposed to come out at the end of December. That doesn't necessarily mean it will. We're hopeful, but like every city, we just have to wait and see when the federal rulemaking happens, which I will say always takes more time than they think it's going to.
Because like the last thing I'd want to do is go down the route of like a project, say, hey, let's fund this, and then not get the funds that we thought, or it comes out to be more expensive than we thought, and you have to abandon it.
Well, and it's worth saying, we're not asking you to come up with specific projects to use it, although it's always very interesting to get that brainstorming. You're welcome to put that forward. But at the end of the day, what we're asking for, just identifying in this list what we think the top 3 priorities are, so that as staff sort of do the fine tuning, we can use that to guide that decision making.
And I think, Gabe, I appreciate your thoughts on this. I think the fact that if we come up with 3 priorities, and we also will have had the discussion, and then if things are shifting by the time this gets to council and the funding, that can all be added in. And maybe some of the points will be relevant later when there's other opportunities with the IRA. It's a tremendous opportunity over many years. And so I think whatever the discussion arrives at, it'll be helpful. And I did just want to note that maybe encourage the commissioners, to recall the things in our equity and co-benefits checklist as you're kind of thinking about what might be a priority. So
often with decisions like these, we talk a lot about the stars aligning. And so a little bit what we're asking you to do is to put 3 stars up, right? And the city council will have their priorities, and we'll be keeping our ears to the ground for partner organizations that may have projects to come forward. And what we're always looking for is where those priorities start aligning. That tends to be the project we pursue, if that's a helpful framework in thinking about the task at hand.
So yes, we have I don't want to call it homework assignment. I hope this is thinking about how to spend money. It's actually a great opportunity, right? So enjoy it, because you won't be getting the bill at the end of the year. So, anything else on this topic? Does everyone feel prepared that sometime after Thanksgiving to delve into this? Great. Well, thank you for all the prep and discussion on that. So I think that just leaves us with the announcement that our last meeting of 2022 is on December 5th in this room at 3:30.
Was there something about Teen Resilience Corps in here?
Did I skip
Resilience
over
Hubs?
something?
I think that was just a follow-up. I had previously asked that be sent out to us.
Okay.
I don't think it was a specific agenda. It was just a follow-up item because I hadn't seen it.
Oh, sorry. If we want to discuss the report from, if we want to discuss that a little bit next time, or was that what? Because of this
Yeah, if you want to discuss it more, we'd need to put it on the agenda to have a full discussion, but you can make that request and we could do that.
Would you like that, to just, for people to have a little time to review it? And
I was wondering if the working group, the Resilience Hub working group, had received it yet before this. No? Okay.
would you like us to wait till you folks have a time to discuss it yourselves first?
Oh, I'm not on that working group. I just wondered if they had.
I'm not sure who to look at on this. I'm looking at those of you on the, would you all like to discuss it first before if there's.
My preference would be to discuss it first.
Okay.
Because it's, like I said earlier, it's kind of new to me, so I'm trying to get up to speed, and
Does that sound all right,
that'd be
Carly?
my preference.
And then, so our focus in December will probably be these priorities and anything else that's timely on that.
Yeah.
So, everyone confirmed on meeting time and place, date, and any actionable items on Sarah? I think we have.
Yeah, I've got one action item and then one question for you. The main action item is for each of you to send your 3 top priorities so we can tally them up. And you can just pull the numbers straight from the memo. Say my vote is 1, 4, and 12, or what have you, and we'll just tally them up that way and bring them up on screen. And then the other, Becky, you had mentioned at the next meeting having that CAP report. I think actually we weren't planning on having it at the December meeting because we're trying to move toward a quarterly reporting.
Oh, sorry.
But I could do a mini report if it'd be helpful.
I think the October one should be accurate.
Yeah, I would reference the October one.
I'm sorry, that was my mistake.
Oh, no, that's okay. Would you like me to put the most recent one in the agenda packet so you'll have it with you at the next one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll add that to the action items then.
Important thing, I think, is to have it at fingertips.
Great. So the 2 action items then are for you all to send me your 3 priorities, and we'll make sure that CAP report is included in the next agenda packet for easy review.
All right, well, I guess you can go enjoy a little bit of what's left of the day if we will. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Diane Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll give that to Ben. I don't know who, I couldn't quite see who said that first. All in favor?
Jumping at the mic.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. See you in December.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey,
Thanks.
Go Hawks.